I do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Have a seat.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Mr. Goss.
May it please you, sir. Could you give your full name, please?
Sergeant Daniel James Clark.
And if we could have Lanc 30271 up, please. Is that a witness statement by you for this inquiry?
Yes, sir.
And if we look to page 13, please. Beneath the redaction for your signature, you signed that on the 31st of July 2025.
Yes, sir.
Is that statement true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
It is, sir.
Sergeant Clark, could I start with a little bit about your experience and training and then pick up on your role on the 17th of March 2022? You're now a sergeant in Cheshire Constabulary, but you've previously worked for both Greater Manchester Police and Lancashire Constabulary. Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
I think you were a call handler in the Force Control Room for Greater Manchester Police from 2013 to 2014.
That's correct, sir.
You became a Police Community Support Officer with GMP 2014 to 2016.
That's correct.
And then you joined Lancashire Constabulary as a police constable in October 2016, initially working as a response officer.
Yes.
Between 2017 and 2018, you worked in Lancashire Constabulary's Early Action Department. We've heard something about that team already, but could you tell us a little bit about your role there?
Yes, in Early Action, I was a PC. The role was to deal with high-intensity users, as well as persons who may be on the periphery of criminality, and about helping divert them away from that path.
High intensity users of drugs?
No, of the service.
The service, right. Thank you.
Did that include working with children who were needing to be diverted away from the path of criminality?
Yes.
After your time there, you returned to response.
Yes.
And in June 2021, you were promoted to sergeant.
Yes.
And I think you were response sergeant in Chorley from June 2021 to December 2022, at which point you transferred to Cheshire.
Yes.
Can you help us with what the role of a response sergeant in Lancashire Constabulary involves?
Yes. At the time, the role would encompass several separate duties. That would include prisoner management of persons in custody. It would involve incident management of any incoming incidents. It would involve ongoing investigation management, staff welfare management, as well as case file management ready for cases to be submitted to the Crown Prosecution Service.
Would management of missing from home episodes be a common feature?
Apologies, yes, that as well.
In your witness statement in paragraph 11, you say that this role in Cheshire Constabulary, where you now work, is essentially covered by 4 different sergeants. Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
Do you think that the role of a response sergeant, as it was organised in Lancashire in 2022, was too much for one person?
It was a significant undertaking, yes.
Too much of a significant undertaking or manageable?
It would depend on the day. Some days were busier than others. Some days were manageable.
And I think on the 17th of March 2022, you were carrying out this response sergeant role not for Chorley, where you normally worked, but for Skelmersdale.
That's correct.
Why was that you were in a different area from your usual one?
I'm led to believe it was due to staffing issues regarding supervision.
Was that a common occurrence?
Yes.
Can I turn then to you initially becoming aware of AR being missing from home on the 17th of March? We know that a call came in to the Lancashire Force Control Room from AR's father at about 11:15 that morning. If we could have Lanc 4045 up, please, page 6. And if we could have the entry at 11:36 enlarged, please. I think we can see there that it's 11:36 that it's transferred to a dispatcher.
Yes.
And if we can look at 11:44, we can see no response from Sierra Bravo 20 Echo times 2. Was that your call sign?
It was, yes.
So there's an attempt to contact you as the response sergeant, but it appears probably twice. That's the times 2.
Correct, yes.
You don't respond. I think you've said in your statement that you think you may well have been dealing with other incidents.
I just don't remember the incident itself, but potentially.
Not unusual if you're working as a response sergeant to have to be focused on whatever it is you're dealing with at that time, rather than somebody trying to raise you on the radio.
Yes, sir.
And we know then that a couple of moments later, we can see that car 9, PC Fairclough, is dispatched at 11:45.
Yes, sir.
So at the point that PC Fairclough is dispatched, you don't have any oversight of this incident.
I don't have any memory of this instance, however it appears so from the incident log.
Yes, I think you've made clear in your statement that you're heavily dependent on the documents for any information now about dealing with this incident.
That is correct, sir, yeah.
Could we look slightly further down the log to 11:54, which is the top of page 8? And we see there the second line down. Again, there's the same text at 11:54. It looks like that may be part of a reprint of all of the text above as the log is being transferred to Merseyside.
I believe that to be the case, yes.
So it isn't a case that you were contacted again at 11:54 and didn't respond. It's that the text that was on the log above is now being copied and pasted further down the log.
That is correct, yes.
I think that's part of transferring it to Merseyside because of the possibility of AR crossing into that force area.
Yes.
We know that there were a number of radio transmissions about the fact that AR was missing from home. Is it likely that at some point you would have become aware of it from those?
Potentially, yes.
And we know that one thing that was circulated and put on the log was that AR may be in possession of a small knife. That was something PC Fairclough found out when he attended the home address. That would be a significant piece of information.
Yes.
And do you have any recollection of being made aware of that yourself?
No, sir.
Can we look to Lanc 30254, please? This is, if I have the right one. Forgive me, can we look to 255? We'll come back to this one in a moment. This is your radio transmission log for that day. Do we see at 12:35 there was a call lasting 23, that's in seconds, to the number ending 620. That maps across to PC Fairclough.
Yes, sir.
So at 12:35 you make a direct call to PC Fairclough that lasts just over 20 seconds.
Yes.
Why make a private or point-to-point call rather than use the wider radio network?
Typically, you would use private calls or point-to-point calls to talk to the officer regarding potentially resource management or just information that you wouldn't want to clog up the airways for operational reasons.
One effect of that is that calls aren't recorded, whereas they are on the wider network. I've been asked to explore whether the use of private calls is a way to make sure that there's no record. What do you say to that?
I don't believe that to be the case.
Thank you. If we could now go then to 254. This is PC Fairclough's transmission log, and we can see at 12:38, third line down, there's a call back to you. You're the number ending 515.
Yes.
That lasts around about 5.5 minutes.
Yes.
So a relatively lengthy call.
Yes.
And given that we know that at this point PC Fairclough was working on this missing from home incident, is it fair for us to assume that those two calls are likely to have been about it?
That's fair, yes.
Do you have any recollection of the content of those calls?
No, sir.
PC Fairclough says that he remembers discussing the risk grading for this episode with you, which he put down as medium, and you agreed. Have you got any reason to doubt what he says about that?
No, sir.
In terms of that risk grading, can you help us with how much information you would have had at this point about AR's previous contact with police?
I can't remember the instance itself. Typically in this circumstance, it would be based on what is present on the log and what the officer is advising me over the call.
Would you have reviewed the log yourself, or would you be dependent on PC Fairclough telling you what he had found out from that and from other sources?
It would depend on what other duties I'm carrying out, what other incidents I may be managing.
If we could look to your statement, please, that's Lank 000271 and page 7. We can see that you set out at paragraphs 33 to 36 that you don't think you were aware of information from October 2019 about AR admitting to carrying a knife into school in order to stab someone, saying he was pretty certain to use it, and making reference to teachers getting murdered.
That's correct.
34, you say you don't think you were aware of his previous convictions in 2020.
That's correct.
And you say outright, I was not, in 35, I was not aware of the previous prevent referrals.
That's correct.
At least the first two of those were available to Lancashire as a force via PNC or via Connect, weren't they?
I believe so, yes.
And we know that PC Fairclough was aware, became aware of the previous convictions, although he had wrongly conflated the October and December incidents into one. Ought you to have been made aware of those two matters, that background?
Yes.
And while PC Fairclough has said he should have made you aware of them, does it go the other way as well? Should you, as the sergeant, have been asking him for that information?
Yes.
Put colloquially, has he got any previous?
Yes.
Is a straightforward question for you to ask.
Yes, correct.
And a relevant one.
Very much so.
At that stage, so the point of assessing the risk grading for AR as a missing person, would that information about matters in October and December 2019, the latter matters having led to his convictions in early 2020, would that have led to a different approach to looking for AR?
Yes.
How?
The risk at that point would have been increased based on the fact that there's a suggestion he may have a weapon and that he has previously used weapons, albeit not used a knife but other weapons, that would have increased the risk significantly.
Do you think you would have suggested to PC Fairclough when he said, if he did, I think this is a medium risk grading, that may have come from you, but when you initially thought, is this a medium risk, you would have said, no, it's a high risk grading?
Yes.
What impact would that have had on the search for AR?
It would have increased the level of resources and capabilities that we would have put into searching for AR.
We know there were a number of documents that PC Fairclough produced shortly after attending the home address, in particular the risk assessment, which we've just touched on, but also the missing from home question set that gets transferred, and he opened a missing from home log.
Yes.
Would you have reviewed those on the day?
The typical process of reviewing missing from homes would there be an initial conversation with the officer to gauge an initial risk assessment, and then throughout the shift at some point the supervisor would do a full risk assessment of all the available information.
There's no sign on those logs that it reached the point where you carried out any sort of review of those?
Yes, the typical full review of a missing from home would have been placed on potentially the inquiry log, if memory serves, if I had done a full evidential review at that point.
If we can go back, please, to Lank 30254. There's two further calls from PC Fairclough to you. Again, we're looking for that 515 at the end of the receiving number in the second column. One at 1:47, lasting just over 2 minutes, and one at 2:16, lasting 35 seconds. Thank you. Can I take it that you've got no recollection of what the content of those calls was?
That's correct, sir.
You don't recall if they... it's likely, though, that they related to this episode. That was what PC Fairclough was dealing with that day?
Yes, sir.
You don't recall receiving any information in those calls that changed your assessment of the situation, though?
No, sir.
And given that we know that the assessment didn't change, it was left at medium risk, does it seem likely that there wasn't such information passed to you?
Yes.
And that would reflect both PC Fairclough not offering it up, but also you not seeking it out?
Yes.
Do you think you did enough in this case to inform yourself about the incident and the person who was missing?
I believe I could have researched AR during this process.
But didn't do so?
It appears so, yes.
Do you recall being made aware of any information or concerns about AR's mental health?
I don't remember any conversation that I would have had or anything about this incident, sorry.
There's a reference to him having autism on the log. Do you think you would have been aware of that?
Yes.
What about the fact that he was under the care or supervision of CAMS or any other mental health service?
If it was written in the log, I was likely aware of it.
Is that involvement of mental health services or a background of mental health concerns a common feature in missing from home cases?
Yes.
And is it something that's then a factor in your consideration of the case, both in terms of assessing it, but also how to deal with the missing person when they're found?
Yes.
And we'll come back to that. Can we move forward a little bit in time now to the call into Lancashire from the bus company, which is about 2:40 p.m. We've got that on Lanc 4046. And if we could go down to page 2, 3, in fact, please. Thank you. And if we could just have the bottom half of that page expanded, please. And so we can see the information that's recorded there. Informant is a coach driver, and a young black male, late teens, has got on bus, begun to get stroppy. Gives details of which bus. Says there's a few elderly passengers who he's upsetting. Gives a description: black, late teens, grey hoodie, grey tracksuit bottoms and black trainers. Bus is currently stopped outside the Hesketh Arms, and the male is refusing to get off. He's not paid for the fare, just walked to the rear of the bus. Informant is the supervisor and not the driver. Unsure if the male has issues. I think you then reviewed that log around 15 minutes later as part of your ordinary responsibilities as a response sergeant, keeping an eye on what's going on your patch.
Yes, sir.
And we can see that at the bottom of that page, there's your call sign, 20.
Yes.
Can we get a proper description? Believe it is going to be our miss per AR.
Yes.
And I think you've been able to listen to the calls between you and the control room around this time to refresh your memory of how this unfolded.
Yes.
But in summary, we can see there you ask for a proper description, i.e. something a little bit more than black, late teens, grey hoodie, grey tracksuit bottoms, black trainers.
Yes.
And I think if we go over to the next page, in fact, just pausing there, it follows that you would have been aware of the description that had already been circulated of AR, which suggested he was wearing blue jeans.
Yes.
If we go over to the next page, we can see, before we come to that, I think there's a record of you trying to get PC Fairclough and draw his attention to this call.
Yes.
And you try to get a better description from PC Fairclough in terms of what AR was wearing to try and match it to what the bus company had reported.
Yes.
And then we can see at 3 o'clock on that log, there's an entry recorded from you. Can we recall the informant and get updates from them to confirm if he leaves or not?
Yes.
And I think when we are looking at the call log of that, you also ask if he leaves, can we get a direction of travel?
That's correct, yes.
In other words, having located someone who you think is very likely to be your missing person, you want to give yourself the best possible chance of not losing them again.
That's correct, yes.
And we can see there that PC Rhodes and PC Fairclough then arrive at the scene at just about 15:05, and we've heard that it was PC Rhodes, in fact, who arrived first.
Yes.
And if we could go back to Lank 30255. There is a call at 15:07 from you to PC Rhodes device, that lasts 1 minute and 45 seconds.
Yes.
Again, reasonable to assume that that relates to AR, even though you can't remember what the content of that call was.
Yes.
Is it possible that although this was PC Rhodes radio, it was in fact PC Fairclough you spoke to?
Yes.
If we could look at Lank 30426. This again is a radio transcript from calls involving the control room. We can see that the first person who speaks, Bravo Car 9, is PC Fairclough.
Yes.
And he gives an update. Car 7 is going to jump in with myself, so we're going to take AR back home. He was in possession of a small knife.
Yes.
Control say, yeah, received. Bravo 20 received. That's you, Bravo 20.
Yes.
And then you speak up, Bravo 20. The message gets relayed, and you say, yeah, Roger, I was just chatting to him on private, thanks. Does that suggest that you had just been chatting to PC Fairclough
It would suggest so,
on a
yes.
private call? So even though that record is of a call from you to PC Rhodes, it appears that you've in fact spoken to PC Fairclough.
Yes.
And you've clearly been updated about the fact that AR did in fact have a small knife on him, as had been suspected from earlier that morning.
Yes.
Equally, it's clear that at this point a decision has been made to take AR home rather than arrest him or exercise any powers under Section 136 of the Mental Health Act.
Yes.
And PC Fairclough has told us that he remembers consulting you about that decision and how to deal with it. Again, no reason to doubt what he says about that.
Yes, correct.
If it's that conversation lasting 1 minute and 45 seconds that determined whether or not AR was to be arrested or taken home or any other outcome applied, would you agree that's quite a short call?
Yes.
PC Fairclough recalls you asking if there'd been any threats made and about AR's demeanour. Again, you can't recall, but do those seem like the kind of things you would have asked about?
Yes.
Ought you, at this point, again, to have asked, actually, what else do we know about him?
I have no recollection of the call, so I can't confirm whether or not that was asked, but I should have done if not.
But you don't think that you were aware of, for example, his previous convictions?
Yes. Yeah. Correct.
PC Fairclough told you there hadn't been any threats. He checked with the bus driver, and he told you that AR had been compliant. Again, no reason to dispute what he says he told you.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that given that AR had been non-compliant with the bus driver, as we've seen, that the impact of very short-term compliance while the police were there might have been overstated somewhat?
Potentially, yes.
And PC Fairclough says you suggested the best course of action was to take AR home to his parents, for them to safeguard him, and for a high-risk PVP, a vulnerable child referral, to be made. Again, does that sound like the sort of advice you would have given in this scenario?
I think at the time, with current guidance, yes.
Was AR's mental health a factor in that sort of decision?
Yes.
Was that something you were qualified to assess?
Not professionally, no.
And off the back of a 1 minute and 45 second update from PC Fairclough?
No.
Would it have been open to you to suggest to the officers at the scene, actually, might be worth getting some input from mental health services?
Yes.
And so it was a short call, and it was one where it seems likely that you still weren't aware of all of the relevant risk factors sitting behind AR, such as previous conviction and the fact that there'd been multiple reports of him having weapons in public places.
That's correct, sir.
If you had been aware of those factors, do you think it's more likely you would have advised PC Fairclough, actually, I think we need to bring him in?
Yes.
PC Fairclough and PC Rhodes have both expressed concerns that a custody sergeant might well not authorise detention in those circumstances. Do you share that view?
It wouldn't be for me to second-guess the custody sergeant's rationale. That would be for them to rationalise. In my experience, it was difficult to get children in custody at the time, but it wouldn't necessarily be a deciding factor upon an arrest.
In general terms, is there a particular and understandable reluctance in policing to arrest and detain children?
Yes.
In effect, because of the, again, understandable desire not to criminalise children and to potentially risk harming them by placing them in custody.
Yes.
Do you think that that understandable concern about risk to children can in some circumstances lead to the risk to others being overlooked or underestimated?
Yes.
And separately, do you think that there is a tendency in policing to categorise issues as being either a criminal justice issue or a mental health issue?
Yes.
And again, can that lead to risk to others from those with mental health difficulties
Yes.
being overlooked? You've anticipated where the question was going, but is that risk sometimes underestimated or overlooked?
Yes.
In terms then of what happened in the back of the police car when PC Rhodes and PC Fairclough were taking AR back to his home address in line with your advice, we know that he referred to having the knife because he wanted to stab someone, and he also made reference to some degree or other to poison. As best as you can say, you don't believe that information was passed back to you.
That's correct.
And in your witness statement at paragraph 45, you say this is pertinent information and I believe that a supervisor should have been made aware. Is that your evidence?
Yes, sir.
Could we look at Lank 30285, please? And page 3. There is, at 1526, we can see that there's a call from PC Rhodes' device to yours, lasting just under 3 minutes.
Yes.
We've seen on the log that it was 1510 that the officers reported that they were taking AR home, and that seems to match with that the transcript of the call we looked at earlier where you said, I've just been speaking to PC Fairclough, speaking to him on private.
Yes.
So this is about 15 minutes later, 16 minutes later.
Yes.
And we know that the distance between where AR was found and his home address was some 10 to 12 minutes drive. So it seems likely that this call took place after they had arrived back at the home address and after, therefore, AR had made the comments about wanting to stab someone and about poison. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Can you help us at all with what the contents of that 3-minute call were?
No, sorry.
It would have been an obvious opportunity for one or other of the officers to say, Sergeant, actually, he said some pretty worrying things in the back of the car.
Yes.
Being fair, neither PC Fairclough nor PC Rhodes have ever suggested that they did report that back to you. Do you think it's possible that they might have done?
I don't believe so, no.
Is that because you think that if this had been reported to you, it's the sort of thing that would have stuck in your mind?
Yes, and the guidance I would have offered would have been significantly different.
Is the reference to poison in particular something that you regularly come across in the course of duties as a response sergeant?
Not at all. It's a very uncommon circumstance.
If you had been made aware, you say it would have led to you offering significantly different guidance. What guidance would you have offered?
To arrest.
Would the reference to poison have led you to seek advice yourself from anywhere else?
Yes, I would have made my duty inspector aware, as well as the force incident manager, otherwise known as the FIM, and they would then begin conducting inquiries and guidance, including the inclusion of chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear trained officers, otherwise known as CBRN.
So effectively seeking to draw on specialist capabilities from elsewhere in the force.
That's correct.
If, as well as the information about wanting to stab someone and about poison, you'd also been aware of his previous convictions and his previous behaviour around knives, this is all adding up to being a series of real red flags, isn't it?
That's correct.
And this is all even without knowing about the previous prevent referrals.
That's correct.
If you had known about those, can we take it that they would have pushed you even further towards, actually, I think we need to arrest and investigate this carefully?
Very much so, yes.
Do you think that that investigation would have included a search of AR's home address?
Yes.
And by this time, we know that AR had purchased chemistry equipment and the raw materials for making ricin, and also on one of his devices had downloaded a Al-Qaeda manual. You'd expect those to have been found on any search of the home address.
Yes.
But as you say, you were never made aware of that information and so never able to give that guidance as far as you can recall.
That's correct.
I should say, you are confident you didn't give that guidance, but as far as you can say, you were never given that information.
That's correct, sir.
And I think ultimately your shift ended at 4 p.m. and you would have handed over at that point to another response sergeant.
To provide slightly more context on that, response sergeants would typically come in and hand over half an hour prior to the end of the shift. So I would have taken control of Skelmersdale at 6:30 in the morning, roughly, and I would hand over control at roughly 3:30 to the subsequent late sergeant. So,
but you were on duty until 4 o'clock, but as engaged in a handover
yes.
for the last half hour or so. Could we go back to Lank 4046, please? And if we could go, I think, to page 4. Yes. And if we could have the entries at 1549 enlarged, please. I think we can see there that there are a number of entries at 1549 updating the situation from PC Fairclough.
Yes.
Does the fact that they say 8620 in the right-hand column indicate that those were put on the log directly by PC Fairclough?
Yes.
So it isn't a case that these were broadcast over the radio and then somebody in the control room has added them to the log as a précis of what was said. That is information that PC Fairclough typed into the log.
Yes.
Would you have been aware of those at the time?
No. I have, through the inquiry team, ascertained that my radio had turned off at 15:45 after completing 9 hours and 6 minutes of a shift. That's typically the last thing I do prior to exiting the building. So I don't believe I was on duty when these comments were input on the system.
And so, again, reminding ourselves that this wasn't your usual area of operations, you weren't then involved in any further supervision of how AR's case was dealt with beyond this point?
That's correct.
So you had no involvement with any safeguarding referrals?
Correct.
Any further decisions about recording or investigating a crime?
That's correct, sir.
Or about closing the crime report?
That's correct, sir.
I think you know, and if we can look at Lank 4089, page 3, I think you know that the crime report was ultimately closed on the basis that AR lacked capacity and prosecution was not appropriate.
That's what I'm led to believe, yes.
If we could see that in the top box on that document there. But again,
Yes.
that wasn't something you were involved in at the time.
No, sir.
Was it part of your assessment at the time that this was primarily a mental health issue?
I wouldn't be able to say I have no recollection of the discussion I had with PC Fairclough.
Both PC Fairclough and PC Road seem to have treated it primarily as being a mental health issue. In that context, does that outcome surprise you?
Yes.
Why?
We're not trained to deem capacity, and lack of capacity is not necessarily a barrier to prosecution.
Do you think that there may have been an element of the officers falling into the trap of treating this as a mental health issue or a criminal justice issue, and as a result underplaying the need for a criminal justice response?
Potentially, yes.
And to the extent that you were supervising those two officers, both still on their probation, do you think you should have done more to guide them away from that kind of thinking?
Yes.
Other than simply referring matters through a safeguarding referral or pursuing a criminal justice outcome, were there other options available to the police at this stage?
Are you talking about in relation to a voluntary attendance interview, apologies, or alternate methods of...
A voluntary attendance interview would have been a way of pursuing the criminal justice outcome without subjecting AR to being arrested and taken into custody, wouldn't it?
Correct.
It might have had an impact on how effective a search of the premises was going to be.
Yes.
But I'm just thinking, because you've worked not only in response but also in early action, and I think also in neighbourhood policing.
Yes.
Are there other interventions available to policing beyond simply referring out or investigating as a crime to deal with a young person carrying a knife?
Yes, there are out-of-court disposal methods, and there are also further networks that we can refer to, such as the Violent Reduction Network.
So, for example, referring somebody to the early action team so that they can do some preventative work?
Yes, the early action team, they wouldn't necessarily be a disposal method for an offence. They would typically work alongside the officers to provide ongoing support.
Were you aware in 2022 of Lancashire's Violence Reduction Network?
I was not.
By that point, you were a response sergeant for about a year, and you'd had experience across both early action and response for some 6 years?
I believe so, yes, roughly, yes.
Do you think, in hindsight, that having two probationary constables, one admittedly near the end of his probation, to deal with an incident like this was appropriate?
Yes. Unfortunately, you don't always have the luxury of deciding which officers to send to incidents due to staff management and resourcing. So as a result, it is quite common for multiple students to go to an incident.
Is that an issue just in Lancashire or across policing generally?
I would only be able to speak for the forces that I've worked for, and I would say that that is an issue that I've come across in all three forces.
Finally, Sergeant Clark, from your perspective, in the time that you and your team were dealing with AR, who within the police was responsible for assessing and addressing the risk that he posed to others?
It would have been, during the incident, sorry to clarify,
Yes.
It would have been between the officers attending and myself once they'd contacted me.
And after he's been returned to his home address and safeguarding referrals have been made, did anyone within the police retain that responsibility after that point?
It would be the investigating officer as the one holding the investigation and the referral.
And generally, so not just limited to the police, after those referrals out, which agency do you think held that responsibility to mitigate risk to others from AR?
I think it'd be a culmination of agencies. I think the police would be the primary agency as there was a criminal offence involved, but there would be responsibilities placed upon the other agencies made aware and the safeguarding issues tasked out to.
When you say other agencies, who are you thinking of?
Be Children's Social Services, the health, as well as any other mental health institutions or mental health agency that may be involved.
You've answered my questions very patiently, Sergeant Clark. I'll just see if there's any from others. Yes, I think so.
Yes, Mr. Byrne.
Thank you, sir. Forgive me, sir, if I'm having a bit of trouble with the audio. So, I ask questions on behalf of the bereaved families. Just a few points. Have you discussed the events of the 17th of March with either PC Fairclough or PC Rhodes prior to this inquiry?
No, I believe I've had a phone call with PC Fairclough just around the inquiry process, as he was nervous around the process itself. I'd already had a discussion with the legal team, so I informed him effectively what the process that I had been through was.
So you have, is that, so did you say you discussed it with Fairclough, not Rhodes, or both?
Yes, I've not had any discussion with Rhodes. It was just
Right.
a brief phone call
Okay.
with PC Fairclough.
And presumably there's been a significant internal inquiry in Lancashire. I appreciate you're now with Cheshire. But have you yourself been sort of questioned, interrogated? Have you discussed these issues with senior management at Lancashire Police?
No.
With Cheshire Police?
No.
So you produced a witness statement. I mean, you've not.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that question.
You've produced obviously a significant witness statement.
Yes.
All done yourself?
It was done in company with the legal team as the normal process.
Right. So you've never have you received any form of advice or warnings from either force about your involvement on the 17th of March?
It would only be advice through this inquiry process, so sitting down with the legal counsel representing Lancashire Constabulary and going through the process of what the inquiry would involve.
So no discussion of any potential disciplinary action, anything like that?
No.
Okay. Just a few questions about your recollection. It's odd, isn't it, that you really remember very little? In fact, you remember nothing.
No.
Not odd.
It's not odd, no. I would deal with several missing persons on average.
So does
day.
PC Fairclough.
Sorry, say again.
Well, both Rhodes and Fairclough remember elements of the story, but you remember nothing.
Yes.
Doesn't that strike you as slightly surprising?
No.
Okay. If you had been informed about poison, it's pretty clear that you would remember, isn't it? Because I think you say yourself, don't you, in your statement, that it's kind of once in a career event.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. When you heard the appalling news about what happened in July 2024, did that make you, and you realised that you had had interactions with AR?
I didn't realise I had interaction with AR until this inquiry process started. I had no
So
recollection.
what was the gap?
Sorry, say again.
The gap between your realisation
I think whenever the inquiry team got in contact with me, which I think may have been April or May this year.
And that didn't trigger any memory at all?
No.
Okay. And just one last mini topic. If you had received in any of these calls that you've been informed about, if you had received any of the information about his past, but you yourself failed to check either the PNC or the local intelligence system, Connect, would you accept that that was a major policing error?
I'm not aware of what information I held on the day, as I don't remember the incident itself. However, if that was the case,
Now,
then
assuming you knew about elements of his past, the really worrying facts that have been laid out before you. So there's enough of a peg, let's call it, for you to make some further inquiry. Would you accept that a reasonably competent police officer, let alone a reasonably competent police sergeant, would have carried out those checks?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Timkin?
Please, you, sir. Sergeant Clark, I ask questions on behalf of the surviving families. You weren't present that day when other officers interacted with AR, were you?
Correct.
So you were reliant on what you were told by PC Fairclough and by PC Rhodes?
Correct.
And as the senior officer supervising them, it was important that you sought all relevant information, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
So that you had an overview of all relevant matters.
Yes, sir.
What was reported to you was that a male, we know AR, was, quote, refusing to get off the bus. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And it was reported to you that he, that's AR, had begun to get stroppy.
Yes, sir.
And of course, later information given that he was intending to stab somebody.
Yes.
What did you understand was AR's intended final destination?
I don't know, sir.
Did you ask that question?
I'm not sure, sir. I don't remember.
It would have been a relevant inquiry, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir.
If PC Fairclough or PC Rhodes had obtained that information, you would have expected them to have given it to you.
Yes, sir.
And it would have been noted.
Yes, sir.
Does it seem, therefore, that nobody asked AR where he was going on that bus?
I wouldn't, as I wasn't privy to the conversation, I'd only be able to surmise based on the information on the logs.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Anything from you, sir?
No.
Investigator.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Now, we're about to turn to the last witness of the day.
We are, sir.
Short break or not, Mr. Goss?
I think perhaps it's slightly early, but if we perhaps took our afternoon break now,
Yes,
that will leave,
we can.
should leave sufficient time.
I'm just going to make one general observation, which is to remind all council that the Rule 10 procedure is critical, and that if council wish to ask questions on behalf of core participants, there must be advance warning of the questions that are going to be asked, and that from here on, that requirement will be enforced. I will sit again at 3:05. Can you remain standing for a moment, just to take that?
I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Please have a seat.
Thank you.
Mr. Corey, could you give your full name, please?
Robert Daniel Curry.
Thank you. Could we have on the screen, please, LANC 30291? Do you recognise that as your witness statement, Mr. Corey?
I do.
Thank you. And we see in the top right it's dated the 26th of August 2025. Is it true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
It is.
Thank you. I want to start, please, Mr. Corey, by asking about your background and role. You joined Lancashire Constabulary as a police control room operator on the 1st of September 2020, is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you. Before you joined the police, you'd had a variety of roles which included hospitality, restorative justice for the National Association of Care and Resettlement of Offenders, and assisting people with learning difficulties for a college and in travel, is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you. In 2023, as a PCRO, Police Control Room Operator, could you just briefly explain your role?
So the role comprises several different duties that you could be rotated to do on any particular day. One of them being call taking, taking 101 and 999 calls. The other main role being dispatching. So after the call is taken and a log is recorded, a dispatcher then attempts to allocate resources to go and deal with that incident. And the only other duty is as a facilitator, which is effectively an assistant to the dispatcher.
Thank you. Just keep your voice up, Mr. Corey, as best you can. And were you doing all three of those roles?
Yes, I was.
Thank you. Can you just explain what it's like to be in the force control room? How many people are in there with you?
Probably 30, maybe slightly more than that sometimes.
And where you're sat, how many other people around you and what are their roles?
It's one room, probably not dissimilar in size to this one, which is all of those people, all separated into three areas, geographical areas of Lancashire. So one for south, east and west. And then if you're taking calls for the whole area. If you're dispatching, you're just dispatching for your individual area.
And would you have supervisors in the room with you?
Yes, there would be a few of those.
And if you needed to ask a question of a supervisor, how would you do that?
If it was a less urgent question, you could go to their desk and ask them. If it was an urgent matter, perhaps during a 999 call, there is a button on screen which will alert the supervisors that you need assistance.
And how many calls would you take a day?
I would imagine that I would probably maybe average between 5 and 10 minutes per call, and it's a 12-hour shift. So depending on how much of my shift was spent call taking rather than dispatching, you can sort of even out how many calls that would be.
Yeah, I'm not going to do the mental arithmetic, but thank you. Was there any time pressure on you to complete a certain number of calls within a shift?
There's no target number of calls. However, when a 999 call comes in and there isn't an operator who is sitting in an available state to take it, there is a bell that rings in the room that all can hear, which rings until such time as that 999 call is picked up by somebody. So when the bell is ringing, there is a clear and distinct urgency to be able to take a call.
And how much of the day, at all, if at all, would the bell be ringing on a typical day?
On a busy day, not far off constant.
So did you feel, therefore, when the pressure when the bell was ringing to move on to the next call?
A call takes as long as it takes and as long as it needs to take, but as soon as you are able to complete the call that you're on, if you can then get on to the next call, that is definitely expected.
And training for the role, what did that comprise of?
When I began, I think there was a 10-week training period, which takes a person from knowing nothing about the police at all through to being able to take calls. There's then a couple of weeks period where you are with a mentor, where you start taking calls under some supervision. And then once you are proficient at call taking, then separate training is arranged to become a facilitator and then a dispatcher.
So you'd done additional training so you could do all three roles?
Yes, that's correct.
And I think you left that role in September 2024. What do you do now?
My job title remains the same, but those three particular roles of call taker, facilitator and dispatcher are no longer strictly applicable. I now work on the ANPR team, so that involves more vehicle-related enquiries.
ANPR, automatic number plate recognition. Moving on to the right care, right person policy. I think you give some explanation of that in your statement, which we'll come to. Just before we do, in your role, you would be taking calls, but you also would be dispatching as well. Did that give you an experience of the resources that were available for Lancashire Constabulary to respond to 999 calls?
Absolutely.
And can you help us? What was your experience of that?
During busy times, the allocation purely of grade 1 emergencies, which would be the highest grade of emergency, could be challenging. Allocation of resources to priority, which is the next most urgent type of deployment, would very frequently be challenging. And anything below that ranged between difficult and impossible at times.
Thank you. Moving on to the policy, I think I'm looking at your statement at page 3, paragraph 14. If we could have that on screen. So you say your understanding is that it was brought in because police were attending incidents that were better suited to other agencies, and this was diverting police resources away from incidents that require police attendance. Accordingly, a question set script, which we'll come to, was created for call handlers to determine whether police were the most appropriate public agency to attend a particular incident. Did you understand right care, right person, RCRP, to be a response to challenges on police resources?
It certainly feeds into it, but I would say it was more about allocating the correct service, because quite often the police aren't the correct service for a particular matter.
Thank you. So you expand a bit on this at page 11 of your statement, paragraph 41. And you say, looking from line 4, it was my experience that agencies and callers made their welfare checks requests to police anyway, potentially to satisfy their own policies, sometimes having approached the correct agency but been unsatisfied with time frames involved or having failed to meet that agency's necessary criteria. you go on to say sometimes agencies, professionals and other members of the public view the police as an agency which will attend everything if no one else will do so or will do so within a time frame they feel acceptable. Was it any part of your role to consider the advantages and disadvantages of this policy?
It wouldn't have been part of my role to second guess the...
So you weren't
reason for it.
involved in setting it or considering the merits of it?
Absolutely not.
Do we take from that you did agree with it based on your experience as a call handler?
I would say based on my experiences as a dispatcher, yes, RCRP did do some benefit.
Because it helped you to be able to dispatch resources to the incidents that you wanted to, or why? Can you help us?
To the incidents that were police incidents, yes.
This is obviously a general statement. Would you agree that in all cases one has to look at the circumstances behind the 999 call?
Yes.
And is this right? RCRP had been in place only for a short period of time by the time of the telephone call that we will come to in March 2023?
I believe so, yes.
And how frequently, before you left your role, did you get calls which related to RCRP?
Very frequently, multiple per day if I was in a call-taking day.
And who would those calls come from?
A wide range. Hospitals quite often, schools, members of the public, other agencies.
And how frequent was it for you to receive calls that you didn't deem were suitable for a police response?
Quite frequent.
Could we turn please to the RCRP policy, which is at LANC 30162. Thank you. So I think actually if we look at this version 1.4, we see the date of commencement is January 2022 and is to be reviewed in January of 2025. Could we just please scroll down to the summary and aims? So we see there the aims of the policy to ensure responses in respect of concerns for welfare are proportionate and in compliance with our legal duties. It's important to be robust and ensure that constabulary employees do not miss critical information that would significantly change the risk assessment. A risk assessment will be carried out for each concern for welfare incident using the national decision model. Could we move on to page 4, please? Thank you. And at 3.4.1, we see that the criteria, the policy criteria that police will only attend CFW concern for welfare call. Is that right?
Yes.
If it's deemed to be a genuine emergency, real and immediate threat of death or serious harm, assess that the individual has been subjected to at least serious harm, or the individual is a person within the care of the police and is facing some harm. Unless this threshold is reached, the police have no duty to take action. Were you familiar with these principles back in 2023?
Not with the document as such, but with the overriding principles, yes.
We'll come on, I think, to see some slides that you would have received for training. Would you have read the policy document?
No.
Could we just see the bottom of that page? And I think we see there a triage. All calls for service will be subject to the following threshold tests for police intervention, and we see a series of questions. In your role, you would go through a set of questions, which we will come to. Is that right? Which effectively pulls these issues into them.
That's correct.
Could we go to page 6, please? And paragraph 3.5.4. There's some specific guidance in relation to children. So special care is required when assessing risks to children. If there's an immediate and significant risk to a child, then the default for us would be deployment. If the risk is not immediate or likely to cause significant harm of any kind, then this is where we can look to the most suitable agency to put appropriate safeguarding measures in place. Were you familiar with those principles?
Yes.
Thank you. And finally, could we go to page 7, paragraphs 3.6.1. So we have partner agency or member of the public. Just help us, do you know what's meant by partner agency in this context?
So some of your concern calls would be from, for example, the NHS, which would be a partner agency. Social services would be another one. Some could just be from concerned neighbours, general members of the public.
Thank you. And it says the partner agency retains that responsibility and should take all necessary steps to ensure the citizens' care and welfare. If this requires a welfare check to be carried out, it's the partner agency's responsibility to do so. And any deficiency in their ability to carry this out should be brought to the attention of their manager. Any deficiency in the partner agency's ability to carry out a welfare check does not make the situation a police matter, and in these circumstances, the police will not attend. Principles you are familiar with?
Yes.
Thank you. Can we move on to page 15? And we have, I think, a flow diagram for a request for a concern for welfare visit from a partner agency. I think we see there the starting point is the top middle-ish box assessment. That is where you would run through the set of questions that we're going to come to next to assess the concern for welfare call. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so on the left-hand side, we have threshold met, raise incident for attendance and thrive. On the right-hand side, we have threshold not met, deliver decision to caller, record feedback, or if non-attendance, if we follow that through, there's an option for resolved no, supervisor speak to caller. In what circumstances would you deem a call to be unresolved?
If the decision not to attend was delivered and there was a significant pushback on that, there is an option to raise the matter to a supervisor for their sort of second opinion as to whether this was a deployable incident.
Thank you. And then we see the supervisor has asked if there's new information, and if there is, then a possibility is a joint visit, but with question marks about the urgency, priority, and routine. And if not, it then goes up to an inspector, and I think theoretically rejoins earlier in the system. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you have any discretion in your approach to the questioning and the assessment of whether the threshold was met, do you think?
In terms of the questions, those are set, but in terms of any discretion you have once you get the answers and determine whether you feel that there's risk there, yes, there would be some amount of discretion.
Thank you. And the alternative is you have the option to pass on to your supervisor.
Yes, if that was necessary.
Thank you. And just in terms of your discretion, would you accept that there might be circumstances where police are the only service with the ability to do a certain task or the ability to carry out a certain concern for welfare check?
Depending on the circumstances, that is possible.
So there might be some people who would respond voluntarily to police presence in a way they wouldn't do to others. Would you agree?
Wasn't the example I was thinking of, but I would have to think of an example to justify yes or no to that.
Was that something that you felt able to take into account when you were taking calls?
I would say it was probably more common that a reaction to police presence might be negative in some people who need a service. I can't think of any examples where I would say we were not the suitable partner agency but would have needed to attend, other than perhaps as a backup to the suitable agency.
Okay. We've looked at the policy, but as I said, there are training slides that have been provided. I just want to ask you about the training slide. Before we do, actually, I'd just like to go to page 38 of the policy. Thank you. And I've mentioned the list of questions. Do we see those written here? Perhaps if they're enlarged slightly, in the context of a request from a partner agency.
They look at least very similar, yes.
Fine. And we'll look at the log, which takes you through that questioning process. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. As I was saying, you'd had training on RCRP, and we have training slides. I just want to ask you about the training on intelligence checks. Could we have up, please, LANC 30284? Thank you. And if we could just make that slide larger. Do you recall seeing this slide?
Yes.
Yeah. So the policy decision is that certain intelligence checks, namely Connect and PNC, will not be made where a welfare check is requested on a member of the public, and it's clear that facts of the request, that the circumstances do not fall within the core policing roles of, we see there, protect and detect crime, etc. Cases where there is a real and immediate risk to life, or if Article 3 treatment will come within the core policing functions. Although the policy decision is that there is no requirement for checks to be conducted on PNC and Connect as above, we will continue to conduct checks on the Smart Storm for all concerned for welfare logs. I think we're familiar with the PNC and Connect from other evidence that we've heard. Can you just help us about the Smart Storm? What was that?
It's the primary system that we use. When a call comes in, the call taker will open a log in Smart Storm. They will fill in the details and circumstances. They will then transfer the log within Smart Storm to the dispatcher, who's still using Smart Storm, will then deploy resources.
And so conduct checks within Smart Storm, does that mean as you're going through the log, you're required to carry out a check?
Yeah, during the creation of the log, or if you're the dispatcher during your dispatching of the log, you can look at various information.
So as a call handler, as you're going through the questionnaire, is this slide suggesting that you ought to be carrying out checks of the police systems?
Yes, you would have to do it after the questionnaire because that pops up on the front of the screen. But after that, you would then do that.
Thank you. I think in fairness to you, you've identified in your statement that there is alternative wording about this. Can we have up, please, LANC 30286? This, I think, is an operating procedure. Were you familiar with this document in 2023?
Yes.
Thank you. And if we look at the bottom, the wording was complete all necessary intel/PNC checks, complete a thorough Thrive risk assessment, and grade appropriately. And those are tasks to be done after you've gone through the log. Is that right?
Once the question set is completed and the pop-up window is closed, you would then be able to do those.
Yeah, thank you. And would you agree, did you find it confusing that there were two different wordings? Were you aware of both?
I was unaware of the difference. The previous slide that we've seen from the training, I would have seen one time ever at the end of a training day, a period of many months earlier. This you would see on a regular basis as you were doing the job and as you were on the call.
Thank you. And you hadn't recollected that there were two different wordings given?
No.
And we will come back perhaps to the word, to what is meant exactly by complete all necessary intel/PNC checks when we look at the call. So moving on to that call, 21st of March 2023, you tell us in your statement that prior to reading the background documents, you had no memory of this call and you didn't realise that it involved AR.
Not
Is
at
that
all.
right? So you were, I think, informed about it after the attack happened. Is that right?
Some time after, yes.
Looking at your statement at paragraph 7, you tell us you were working a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. shift, and I think the call in question came in at 4:30 p.m. Is that right?
Around that, yes.
Thank you. The call was received from Miss Cheryl Smith of Pressfield High School. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
And can you remember, did you know what her role was?
I believe it was something in safeguarding.
We'll come on to the transcript, but just by way of introduction, Miss Smith was asking for a welfare check, correct?
That's correct.
Did the request for a welfare check cause you to immediately start looking at the RCRP process? How do you get from the welfare check to the questionnaire?
So when you open a new log and it is blank in front of you, one of the very first things that you fill in is what type of call is this? For example, is it an assault, a theft, and so on? Any kind of welfare check would sit under a concern for safety. Once you open a log in a concern for safety and save to ensure that the log is now set, the Right Care, Right Person script automatically opens.
And you were told that the school hadn't seen AR since the 25th of May 2022, which was about 10 months previously. CAMS had not seen him since January 2023, which was a few months previous. And you opened the Right Care, Right Person question set based on that, correct?
I selected concern for safety as an instant type.
Yes.
The system automatically opens the question set.
Thank you. Can we have up the transcript, please? Then it's LANC 207, blank 207. Sorry, I might have got that reference wrong, actually. Could we try Lank 4095? That's it. Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much. So we see the preliminaries there. You're given details of the school and also the address of the student. Do we see there 10 Old School Close? And then at the bottom of the page, we see from Miss Smith, we haven't seen him since the 25th of May 22. Every time we try to go over to the house, we're told his mental health needs mean by his mum and dad. One of his mum or his dad will come out and they say because of his mental health needs, we can't see him. He's been seen by a CAMS professional in January, but we're concerned that we haven't been able to check on his well-being at all. And you say there's a strict question set that I have to follow. Do we see that? Thank you. You're asked if there's an immediate risk physically happening right now, and you're told, I don't think anything's especially happening at this moment in time. And then you ask if it relates to mental health issue, and you're told he does have mental health needs, but you're told that Ms. Smith doesn't know what those are. Obviously there's anxiety there, but other than that I don't know. I don't know the absolute details. His behaviours in the home can be difficult for the parents, I think. And then you ask if there's a crime occurring. You're told no. And you say there's no imminent risk of harm because we don't know anything's happening just now. No. We go over the page, please. Thank you. And there we see, I think, the third entrance. The incident doesn't meet the threshold for attendance, and as a result, the police will not be attending. Was that a set response that you were to give when you reached the bottom of the question set?
For a non-attendance, yes, it was a set script.
Thank you. And we see, I think, Miss Smith asks for your last name, and you say we don't give those, and you give your collar number. Is that standard practice?
Standard, yes.
If we look at the bottom of that page, or if we could just go down, we see, I think it's a 5-minute, 21-second call. Some of that time is there's quiet time in amongst this transcript of you typing in details and using the log. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
Thank you. Could we have up the log then, please? It's LANC 4026. Thank you. And if we could scroll through, please, to page 3 and zoom in to the top half of those. And I think we see you effectively translating the transcript onto the log. Is that right?
The lines that begin with question or answer are not typed. Those are entered directly from Storm.
So the question appears, does it, for you to ask?
So the question appears, and then when I select the answer that has been given and hit next, it will paste the question and then the word answer followed by whatever has been typed in.
Thank you. Just going through those questions, there's one question: does the risk relate to a medical-only issue? In brackets, mental health does not fall into the medical issues, it is separate. And you put in the answer yes. I think you accept in your statement that that wasn't right because actually the medical issue, if there was one, was a mental health issue. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. That was an error.
Can you help us firstly with why you think that mistake was made?
It's not typed. It's a radial button, so you click on it, and then you can either click or hit enter on your keyboard to move on. Maybe that I missed with the mouse, the two buttons next to each other. It may be that as I've clicked to move on, I've hit a button that has moved the highlighted selection over.
Did you understand the meanings of these questions at the time? You think it was a mistake, not a misunderstanding, is that right?
No, it was a mistake, not a misunderstanding.
Yeah, thank you. And can you just help us with the outcome of that?
Of selecting yes
Yes,
instead
so
of no.
the result of selecting yes rather than no.
So it wouldn't do anything to the question of deployment. What it would do is the screen where, if you have arrived at a non-deployment, where it delivers the scripted "we will not be attending" statement, it suggests a couple of possible agencies to suggest to the caller. Those agencies may be different if you've selected yes or no to the health question.
So the ambulance service might have been suggested if you click yes, is that right?
Correct, yes.
but it wouldn't have changed the decision on whether police should attend or not. Is that
Not
right?
at all.
Thank you. If we then look at the bottom part of the page, we see you did a Thrive questionnaire. So you go through the Thrive mnemonic: threat, harm, risk, investigation, vulnerability, engagement. I think that you accept in your statement that more detail could have been given here. Do you agree?
Yes, it looks rushed.
Had you asked the questions that allowed you to put more detail in, do you think?
From a right care, right person type call, yes, because they will be covered in the right care, right person questions.
So I think you say in your statement at paragraph 25 that if you'd been able to give more detail, the decision on deployment in accordance with right care, right person had already been made. Is that right? Is that what you're saying by the answer you've just given?
That the answers to the right care, right person questions had already made a non-deployment decision, yes.
So what is the purpose then, if a decision has already been made, of doing this Thrive assessment at this point?
The Thrive assessment is done on all calls, not just right care, right person. So in the majority of cases, there wouldn't have been a right care, right person or any other script. So the Thrive would be the only script. In regard to its action on a right care, right person call, there is definitely some duplication. I think it is just intended to record thought process.
When you ask the questions under the question set, are you expected to explore around those questions more and get more background behind them?
It would depend on the answers to the questions. Sometimes something is very quickly, very clearly not a police matter.
So was that your view on this occasion? You quickly went through the questions and came to the view that it wasn't a police matter, and therefore you did quite a short Thrive assessment.
I went through the questions at, I would say, at a normal rate.
Yes.
I think that the speed taken with the Thrive assessment may have been more to do with possibly the call already having reached a conclusion and perhaps the 999 bell ringing for people urgently needing to get through.
The logs obviously are retained beyond the end of your call, aren't they?
They are.
And would you agree that they might be of use at a later date if another issue that was similar arose?
Yes, that's possible.
Might it be that the purpose of doing the Thrive exercise after the questionnaire is to gather information that might be useful on another occasion?
It is possible.
And do you think it would have been worthwhile then to ask a few further questions to allow you to give a bit more detail in that Thrive assessment?
That could have been an advantage.
Your Thrive conclusion in terms of threat, harm and risk was none. In the context of a school reporting they've been unable to see one of its pupils for almost a year, were you able to make the assessment under Thrive in those circumstances?
The assessment of harm or threat in a policing sense was assessed as none because there was no harm or threat identified.
And in the absence of information, would you accept that there might be benefit for a professional to be able to get eyes on the child?
Absolutely. A professional from the correct agency.
Yeah. So your view is that wouldn't be a policeman?
Absolutely.
We see in the transcripts and the log that you didn't take any details of AR's name or age, correct?
That's correct.
So you knew, I think, the school and the address, but not the person.
correct.
If we look at your statement at paragraph 18, sorry, it's page 4. So you give an answer to this, and I think it's perhaps similar to what we've been considering with the Thrive assessment. The RCRP question set automatically opens at the start of the storm incident log. It had already been established that this wasn't a police matter before these questions would have arisen. I had no reason, therefore, after completing the RCRP question set, to obtain such details. Of course, we'll come on to the intelligence or the checks that might have been made, but you couldn't make those checks without a name, could you?
No.
Thank you. And would you agree that the age would have helped you in assessing, for example, the risk?
Once the questions had been answered on right care, right person, that there was no imminent serious harm, then the potential for a police deployment was then gone. So in terms of helping me with this incident, it wouldn't have changed the outcome.
So in terms of being able to do the checks?
To perform the checks, I would need the name and date of birth.
Yeah. You said that the checks, so we saw the policy, and the standard operating procedure said to carry out all necessary checks, correct?
That's correct.
Was your interpretation of that where that you might be able to say, well, no checks are necessary whatsoever?
That was my reasoning at the time.
Having seen the policy slide that we've seen before, would you agree that that's not what was meant?
Yes, based on the policy, it's not what was meant.
Yeah. But is it that you misinterpreted the SOP, or that it's perhaps slightly unclearly written?
I think it would be much better if it was reworded to match the policy.
Can we have up, please, paragraph 19? So I think you give the background here. I didn't see that any checks were necessary, as RCRP had determined it was not a policing matter due to there being no imminent risk. Any previous matters, such as markers, historic calls, or previous incidents, would not indicate anything which could be described as imminent, and the caller had no information to suggest anything imminent. Can I just ask you about that last sentence? Any previous markers would not indicate anything which could be described as imminent. Is that right?
Yes. Right care, right person looks to deploy to something that is happening now, that is imminent. Anything which has happened in the past cannot be said to be happening now or imminent.
We'll come on to what they actually said, but there could have been records from even the day before, couldn't there?
Yes.
Yeah, and that they might have had a bearing on whether something was imminent or not, mightn't they?
For the meaning of imminent in the right care, right person question set, no.
And can you expand on that, please?
If somebody did something 2 days ago, it doesn't mean that they're doing it today. The right care, right person imminence for police to attend means that they need to be doing it now or about to do it. Something that you did 2 days ago, there's nothing to say that you're going to do that again today, unless we've got information to say that you are, i.e. the caller is saying he has gone to do whatever it was.
Well, I mean, we're speaking in theoreticals, but there must be the possibility that previous context could tell you about what's likely to happen imminently, mustn't there?
Previous context can give you a background into somebody, but in terms of right care, right person, the direction we were given is that if there's nothing being reported to be happening imminently, then you answer that question with a no.
Would it have helped your assessment to know details about AR's address or his parents, for example?
We have his address, but again, unless the caller is telling me something that is happening, it's going to result in the same answer on right care, right person, which is that there is no imminent risk.
Well, the checks on the address might have shown that there were risks to AR, mightn't there?
They may have shown risks, but not ones which could be described as imminent.
You didn't know how frequently or recently the school had attempted to see AR, correct?
That's correct.
Would that have assisted your assessment?
It wouldn't change the answers to the right care, right person questions or the question of deployment. It wasn't a policing matter regarding his attendance or non-attendance.
Might the involvement of other agencies, for example, social services, have assisted with your assessment?
I already knew CAMS were involved due to the answers given. That was who I would have signposted anyway. So I already knew that the correct agency was already involved.
You describe the time pressures in terms of wanting to ensure that you met calls that required an urgent policing response in your statement. And I think you say the next call that you took was for a wanted person who needed to be arrested. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
But what would you say if it was suggested that there was a lack of professional curiosity in terms of the way you went through the question set and carried out the Thrive assessment?
I think the Thrive assessment looks rushed. I think I've already alluded to that in my statement. I wouldn't agree in a lack of professional curiosity.
Could we have up, please, PRE 30223? So, Mr. Corey, you wouldn't have seen this at the time. It's not an email addressed to you, but it is the email that Miss Smith sent after she'd been on the phone. And you'll see that at 4:37 at the bottom of this chain, she goes through the outcome that the threshold was not met for a police welfare call. And you'll see the response, wow, okay, so still no eyes on. Then at 5:10 p.m, she says, the red tape is frightening, not under the remit of Children Missing Education Team, although not seen by schools since 25th of May 2022. Doesn't meet thresholds for police welfare check, as we can't say we think a crime is committed or emergency risk to him. Sefton Welfare Team tell us to do the above. Lancashire SEND tell us to ring police, who won't go. And Lancashire Social Care might say he doesn't meet their remit. Short of breaking in, I don't know how to see this kid. The option is not exhausted. The only option not exhausted is Steve Baker, who might go in to help us because he's attached to us. Now, that was not information that was given to you in the call, was it?
Not so.
If you had been given that background, would that have changed your approach in any way?
No.
And do you think that that is correct? Are you able to give a view?
I think you read out from the policy earlier that non-action, or I can't remember the exact wording, but action not being taken swiftly enough by another agency doesn't make a non-police matter a police matter. I feel that it's a very difficult situation for the school. They're clearly trying to get a check done, but that it is not a police check.
So that information doesn't change the answers that you would have given to the questionnaire.
Not at all.
You said that you had a discretion. Would that have affected your exercise of discretion?
No.
And the flow chart gave you the option to refer to a supervisor. If Ms. Smith had raised that with you, would you have taken that option, do you think?
If she'd raised this email with me,
Raised the contents of the email, in other words, said no one else is able to go and I'm having real trouble in
No.
seeing AR. And are you just able to explain why?
no. If she had raised this difficulty with me, I would have probably urged another try to social services, another try to push them into attendance.
Did you think to give that feedback anyway?
So the non-deployment end of a call is to signpost, but she had already mentioned the involvement of the people I would have signposted to, which had rendered that a little bit mute.
Which is?
CAMS were involved already. And also I don't know if you've heard the actual audio of the call. The call, once the non-deployment answer is given, it is pushed quite swiftly along towards the end of the call. So I didn't feel a need to break the flow to go back to reiterate the deployment of the service that she is already seeking with CAMS.
Again, just for context, this is not a matter that you would have been aware of, but can we have up MERP 002463? So we see at the bottom, this is an email chain between Cheryl Smith and Stephen Baker of Merseyside Police. And in the bottom email, she gives a bit more of a timeline of attendances and an attempt to make contact. And you'll see the entry there in the third entry, the 21st of March 23, which I think refers to the 101 call to you. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
And she is emailing Steve Baker saying, I would ask you. So I think that the implication is that she's asking Steve Baker of Merseyside Police to attend to see AR. And then you'll see at the top of the page that on the 27th of March, thank you, so if we could just take the top third, AR did go to school on the 27th of March, so not too long after your call, without, I think, the need for Mr. Baker, PC Baker, to attend. So I just give that context. Do you have a view on the fact that Miss Smith felt the need to go to a different police force to get help?
I was unaware at the time that any police force had officers specifically assigned to schools. As far as I know, we don't have anywhere near that kind of resource. If there is an officer whose duties are around a particular school, it would seem a fairly logical step for her to take.
So the fact that that we know that PC Baker did carry out visits on another occasion, does that doesn't show any error in the RCRP process for Lancashire Police, is that right? It's the fact that there's different resources.
Correct.
From your perspective, did you consider whether there was a lead agency that was responsible for assessing and managing the risk of the person that was being discussed in the phone call?
If we mean in terms of the risk of the non-attendance to school, yes.
And who was that?
CAMS.
Fine. And you didn't have any information to suggest any background about AR that suggested that he would present a risk to anyone else. Is that right?
There was no risk being advised of him being posed to anyone at that point.
If you had carried out checks and found out some of the things that we now know about AR, and I suspect you're aware, so history of taking a knife into school, history of taking a knife to school on 2 occasions, once carrying it, second carrying out attack and hitting someone with a hockey stick, on another occasion being found with a knife on a bus, 3 referrals to prevent. Would those have changed your assessment under RCRP?
No.
Can we open up, please, LANC 4063? So we have an email chain here, which I think you'll see if we zoom on the bottom emails are in the last page, page 3. It's very small writing, but this was a review by the Police Standards Department, and we see the date of the email. It's the 5th of August 24, so it's after the attack. And I think if we go up, we see that there was a review of your call. To the bottom, please, of page 2. Thank you. So this call was reviewed by Jason Barker, the operations manager of, is that West?
I believe he was at the time.
Yeah, thank you. And the observations given are, the operator was polite and courteous. He's worked through the question set, albeit minimal information obtained and recorded. And the RCRP end statement has been given as no deployment. There's been no query from the caller, and as a result, the log has been closed by the operator and finalised by the supervisor in the force control room. Just on that last point, the closure of the log had to be approved by a supervisor. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
The operator has not asked the name or age of the child student, which we've covered. The RCRP current police policy training advises minimal background check should be completed, which should be, I think that should be to look at previous logs and any markers on storm. This has not been done. There are a number of previous incidents for the address, including 2 times domestics. There are 3 times VU.
Vulnerable
Markers on the home address that have not been checked. If these had been checked for me, this would have increased the risk. Then it gives background about the school that we know, but it says, again, this should have been explored further, i.e. how many times have the school been to the address, have they had social services involved, have they made visits, etc. And then the Thrive assessment has been completed again, but again, in my opinion, this is poor with minimal information. I think we've gone through these issues as we've looked at the documentation, and I think your answer has been that you think sufficient information was given throughout the response, maybe with the exception of the Thrive. Is that right?
Yes.
So do you disagree with the views of the operations manager, Mr. Barker?
My view on this email is that it was written at a time when it would have been quite difficult to assess the call on its own merits rather than in hindsight of what happened many months after the call.
But looking at whether there's sufficient detail, for example, isn't that an objective question?
I think the conclusion that there was any further detail that could have brought a deployment, I don't agree with.
So I'm not asking you about that, Mr. Corey. I'm asking about your practices and the amount of detail that's given in there, not about whether it changed the final result. Do you accept the criticisms that have been made of the practices, the way that you completed the call and the amount of detail that you took?
Having now seen the policy document rather than the standard operating procedure, yes.
So I think you're referring there to the fact that if you'd carried out the checks on the intel reports, you would have got these further markers that have been taken back.
That's correct.
And do you agree with Mr. Barker that these would have increased the risk?
Not to a point of creating a deployment.
I'm not asking that, I'm just asking whether they would have increased the risk.
It's possible.
Could we go to the top of the page? And zoom in, please. So we have there the account of this being fed back to you. He's taken the feedback on board, but doesn't accept that anything would have changed the deployment or outcome of the RCRP. Again, I'm not asking about whether anything would have changed the outcome, but had you taken the feedback on board at that stage?
Yes.
In terms of the issues. Could we have, please, your statement up at page 9, paragraph 35? So we see at the bottom that you say that you followed the RCRP question set and determined this was, and if we could go over the page, even with the knowledge of the tragic events that took place the following year, this call, based on all the information given, was still not a police matter. So again, you're looking at the outcome, but the inquiry is also interested in the processes. You haven't, I think, except for your reference to the Thrive, addressed any of the other issues here, the Thrive and also the difference between the policy. But in terms of the detail that's given in your feedback, I don't think you've addressed that in your statement, have you?
I think the difference mentioned in the policy changes the amount of information that would be on the log. So, yeah, I accept that there would be more information on the log in hindsight of the policy.
And do you accept that the needs to carry out those checks after you finish the question set shows that the expectation is that you gather more information than the question set necessarily drives you to?
Yes.
Mr. Corey, the reason I'm asking about the process is that just the inquiry will want to understand that these issues are the reason for these issues and also to consider recommendations. Are you able to address why those matters in the feedback were raised? I think we've already covered the confusion in the policy. What about the extent of the detail and the Thrive assessment? Do you think that was your training in terms of your understanding around the requirements of an RCRP call?
No, I think the additional information to be taken, I think we've covered with the difference in between the policy and the standard operating procedure. The Thrive, I think, I can only assume comes down to the state of the call queue on the day and whether the 999 bell was ringing.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to address?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. So that completes my questions. I'll just look around. No, I'm seeing shakes head.
Mr. Corey, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now free to go.
Thank you very much.
So we will now swap and Mr. Goss will take over.
I think it's some reading now, Mr. Goss.
It is, sir, yes. Before, sir, we hear from Assistant Chief Constable Winstanley tomorrow, we hope it's helpful to have other key evidence of the other key elements of the evidence relating to prior police contact with AR before the attack summarised. As with the other summaries of evidence, sir, this isn't intended to be exhaustive, but it's to give a sufficient overview of evidence which you've considered it's not necessary or not proportionate to call live. And I emphasise, sir, that this summary relates only to what might be called conventional policing. After we have heard from ACC Winstanley, we'll turn our attention to prior contacts between AR and counter-terrorism policing, including Prevent. The first statements to summarise, sir, relate to the attack on the 11th of December 2019. PC Liam Dodd, whose statement is at MERP 7527, was one of the Merseyside officers tasked to respond after the 999 call from the Range High School. He was on duty with PC John Clark, whose inquiry statement is at MERP 8138. They were tasked at 9:23 a.m. and arrived at 9:32 a.m. on the 11th of December. PC Dodd does not believe that they were made aware of the parallel call into Lancashire. AR had been arrested by the time that came across to Merseyside. On arrival at the school, they were met by the head teacher, Michael McGarry, and taken to his office. AR was in the office. Mr. McGarry explained that AR had previously been expelled from the Range High School, but had attended that day during an assembly. When challenged by Mr. McGarry, AR walked away down a corridor, producing a hockey stick from his coat and striking another student. Mr. McGarry and a deputy head teacher were able to intervene and take the hockey stick away from him, and PC Dodd was given the hockey stick in the office and he seized it as an exhibit. PC Dodd began to speak to AR, and AR told him he had a knife in his rucksack, and PC Dodd then seized a kitchen knife from the rucksack. PC Clark went to speak to the pupil who had been attacked, while PC Dodd stayed with AR. PC Clark was told that the pupil, who was 13 years old, had reddening to his left arm and pain to the index and middle finger of his right hand, injuries he had sustained while trying to protect his head. He relayed this information to PC Dodd, and later that day, PC Clark took photographs of the injuries. At 9:45, PC Dodd arrested AR on suspicion of assault occasioning actual bodily harm, possession of a bladed article on school premises, and possession of an offensive weapon, namely the hockey stick. There was no reply from AR to the caution. PC Dodd sets out in his statement his rationale for the arrest. He says he placed AR in handcuffs, and the officers then conveyed him to St Anne's Street custody suite, where his detention was authorised. PC Clark recalls that he was quiet and compliant on the journey. You have heard, sir, about the further progress of the investigation from DC Murphy.
Indeed.
PC Dodd and PC Clark, however, were also two of the officers who carried out the search of 10 Old School Close later that day. They both described that in their witness statements. They were aware of the reasons for the search, namely information received suggesting that AR had been searching for school shootings and beheadings on school computers. They were specifically looking for internet-enabled devices, and AR's mother was present during the search. You've heard so again about the devices that were seized and the investigations carried out into them. Finally, on these officers, PC Dodd was also the officer who completed the safeguarding referral for AR, which was then submitted from Merseyside to the Lancashire Constabulary Control Room, and in turn then sent on to the Lancashire MASH. And you've already heard, sir, and we'll hear further, about the steps that Children's Social Care then took in mid-December, in particular convening the strategy meeting on the 17th of December. I turn then, sir, to evidence relating to other calls to Lancashire Constabulary. You've heard live evidence about their dealings with AR in October to December 2019, in March 2022, and just now in March 2023. There were 3 other occasions when Lancashire Constabulary came into contact with AR. The first was on the 5th of November 2021. That is described in the witness statement of DC Helen Connaughton, Lanc 408. She was not the officer who dealt with that case, but she summarises the material that is available from the documents. PC Williams, who dealt with that case, was for good reason not able to provide a statement to the inquiry. DC Connaughton describes the force control room receiving an incident that had been transferred from Merseyside Police at 2:33 p.m. on the 5th of November 2021. The original call from AR's mother had gone to Merseyside in error because of how close 10 Old School Close is to the force boundary. AR's mother had told Merseyside Police that AR had been smashing the house up, had been throwing things around and at people, that he was 15 years old and had autism. The log recorded that he did not have any weapons. Initially, she had requested police attendance straight away, but then changed her mind and said she did not want police attendance. At 5:08 p.m, the Lancashire control room contacted AR's mother. She said AR had now calmed down, no damage had been caused, and that they had called the psychologist. She did not now need police to attend, and they already had various agencies in support. At approximately 5:30 p.m, PC Williams telephoned her to deal with the incident. PC Williams did not visit the home address. Following the telephone call, he created a medium-risk vulnerable child report. He recorded on it that AR had autism, lived with his parents and sibling, and was not currently in education. He said that AR had been on the sofa at home when a stranger knocked on the front door. AR did not like people coming to the house, people seeing him, or his parents going outside. The knocking on the door had made him agitated, and he had thrown things at the wall and made a mess. He'd calmed down on hearing police had been called, and was calm at the point PC Williams called. PC Williams also recorded in his daybook that AR's mother had contacted Sharon from Early Help and his psychologist. The vulnerable child report went to the MASH and was shared with AR's allocated caseworker in Early Help, Louise Lewis. It was also shared with Health and with Education. There was also an Operation Encompass referral, though this was sent to Lancashire County Council rather than directly to the Acorn School. The second further incident took place just over 3 weeks later, on the 30th of November 2021. It's dealt with in the witness statement of Police Sergeant Keith Ward, Lanc 294, who was one of the officers dealing with it. At the time, he was a police constable with some 17 years' service. He was on a night shift with PC Hall. They were tasked to attend a call from AR's parents, which had come into the control room at 6:47 p.m. Again, on a transfer from Merseyside due to the 999 call having been misdirected. The original details on the log were that AR had become angry at the food his parents had cooked him for tea and had thrown a plate of food at a rental car and jumped on the car. The log said that AR had behavioural problems, had autism, and had threatened to destroy the vehicle if his parents took his brother to music. A Lancashire control room operator called AR's parents back at 8:29 p.m. At that point, they were told that AR was no longer causing problems and was quiet in the living room. PC Ward and PC Hall arrived at the address at 11:39 p.m, approximately 5 hours after the initial call. PC Ward spoke with AR's father, while PC Hall spoke with AR. PC Ward later recorded that AR was struggling with autism and that there had been an argument over what had been cooked for tea. AR had kicked his father in the leg, causing no injury, and thrown a plate of food at a car, causing a crack in the front windscreen. AR's father did not want there to be a criminal investigation, but was seeking advice and support. He was aware that there would be a safeguarding referral to other agencies. PC Ward then sets out his rationale, reached in conjunction with Alphonse R and PC Hall, for not arresting AR, including that Alphonse R did not support an investigation, the fact that AR was now calm, AR's age of 15, and the fact that detaining him would now mean holding a child in custody in the middle of the night. PC Ward's view, which he's clear he still holds, is that the appropriate way to deal with this incident was to make a safeguarding referral for partner agencies to assist AR with his autism and his behavioural difficulties, rather than a criminal investigation. PC Ward did create a crime report for the assault and criminal damage offences, it's Lanc 79, but this was in effect opened only in order to be closed, as, quote, suspect suffers with autism and it is not in the public interest to prosecute, and victim, open brackets, father, close brackets, does not want to make any complaint, end quote. And you will hear from ACC Winstanley tomorrow, sir, about the supervisor review that signed off that closure. PC Ward also created a standard risk safeguarding referral for the MASH, Lanc 80, and an Opping Compass referral to Acorn School at Lanc 119. And the safeguarding referral was subsequently shared with Child and Family Wellbeing Service, to whom AR was open at the time by the MASH. I should add, sir, that PS Ward has no memory of being aware of any of AR's previous contact with Lancashire or Merseyside Police, or the fact of any previous Prevent referrals. He does, though, note that while he would like as much information as possible when attending an incident, it's unrealistic for a control room operator to research and pass all available information over the radio. He does not think that any of this information would have changed how he dealt with this incident, save that he might have considered a medium risk grading for the safeguarding referral to the MASH. Overall, he thinks he was provided with adequate information to respond to this incident. He does, however, think that it would be beneficial for frontline officers to be made aware of cases where an individual has previously been referred to Prevent, though he says he's mindful of the sensitive information that Prevent may hold. The final incident of contact between Lancashire Constabulary and AR to be covered in this summary took place in the early hours of 14th of May 2022, just under 2 months after the missing from home episode in March 2022, about which you've heard earlier today, sir. It's described in the witness statement of PC Peter Andrews at Lanc 272. It involves yet a third occasion when a 999 call from 10 Old School Close was misdirected to Merseyside Police and then transferred to Lancashire. The incident log is Lanc 47. The call was received by the Lancashire control room at 4:26 a.m. In fact, on this occasion, there were 2 999 calls. The other was received by Cheshire Constabulary and also redirected to Lancashire. Both were dropped calls. In the Merseyside one, a voice was heard saying, "We need police, please," and the call was then terminated. It was traced to 10 Old School Close, and because of the abandoned call and the vulnerability markers that had been placed on that address, Lancashire gave this a Grade 1 priority. PC Andrews, deploying with PC Franzoni, arrived at the address shortly before 5 a.m. On arrival, AR's father answered the door. Based on what's recorded in the subsequent log, he told them that his son was autistic and that he'd been causing issues within the home. He told them that AR had awoken in the middle of the night demanding a laptop. He said that AR had been denied access to the computer earlier in the night, and when he'd been denied access to the computer, he started to throw food around the kitchen. AR's father also told the officers that AR had locked himself in the bathroom and overfilled the bathtub, which had caused the electricity to short out. AR's father told PC Andrews that he was struggling with both his children. He said that AR was refusing to attend his educational establishment and had been refusing to take his prescribed medication for his autism the prior week, which was having a profound effect on him. He also said that AR was getting older and stronger and that they were struggling to cope with him. He said that he was going to contact CAMS and his GP. PC Andrews went to speak to AR. He was upstairs in his bedroom, sitting or kneeling on the floor. PC Andrews tried to speak to him about his behaviour and what had happened on that evening, but he would not engage. PC Andrews says, quote, "I do not think he spoke one word to me. I do not think he even looked at me. AR wasn't rude in any way, he just wouldn't speak," end quote. PC Andrews took the view that no offences had been disclosed and that this was a vulnerable child matter. He opened a vulnerable child investigation, Lanc 93, and submitted a high-risk safeguarding referral to the MASH. The next day, this was downgraded to medium risk by the MASH and shared with other agencies, Lanc 94. There was also an Opping Compass referral at Lanc 124, and the vulnerable child investigation was subsequently closed. PC Andrews was not aware of AR's prior contact with police or his previous referrals to Prevent. He thinks nonetheless that he had sufficient information to respond to the call and notes that it's not proportionate for response officers responding to a Grade 1 call to stop to carry out background checks. You've heard just now, sir, from Mr Corrie about the very final instance of Lancashire Constabulary coming into contact with AR prior to the attack when Presfield School called to request a welfare check on the 14th of March. That then, sir, is the summary of the further evidence relating to prior police contact with AR. Tomorrow, the first witness will be ACC Winstanley, giving corporate evidence on behalf of Lancashire Constabulary. And to the extent that it's necessary, we will cover with him 2 further statements of DI Melissa Kelly in respect of Lancashire Constabulary's role in the MASH, it's Lanc 395, and DI Andrew Marston in respect of Operation Encompass, Lanc 407. After the Assistant Chief Constable, we'll then hear from DC Blundell and Officer B of CTP Northwest as we start to look at contact with prevent and counter-terrorism policing.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Goss. We'll sit again then at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Thank you, sir.